Have you ever seen like a house listing online and you think, man, if I could just roll the cost of fixing this place up into the mortgage?
Yeah.
Well, that's what we're talking about today.
Oh, very cool.
We are diving deep into the FHA 203K loan program.
Okay.
And it's a way for you to finance not just buying a place, but also all those renovations with one loan.
That's awesome.
Yeah. So if you've been looking at properties that need a little bit of love, maybe they need some work.
Some untapped potential.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But maybe the idea of getting a loan for the house and then also another loan for the renovations has just seemed too overwhelming.
Yeah, absolutely.
This is the deep dive for you.
Right.
We're really going to break down how this government-backed loan can help you bridge that gap.
Yeah, and it's a great program for folks who don't have a ton of cash on hand, but they're willing to put in some sweat equity.
Right.
Exactly.
So we've gone through the official HUD website.
Okay.
HUD.gov, which lays out all the guidelines. And we've also gone through this really helpful blog post from Rooster Homes.
Okay.
And they have a lot of experience with 203K loans and share kind of who can benefit and their advice.
Right.
So our mission today is really just to give you a good understanding of what an FHA 203K loan is, how it works, who might be eligible, and things that you really need to think about.
The nitty-gritty.
Yeah, exactly.
Right.
So what exactly is an FHA 203K loan?
So it's basically a mortgage that's insured by the Federal Housing Administration.
Okay.
So that's the FHA.
Got it.
And what's cool about it is it lets home buyers or even existing homeowners who want to refinance include renovation costs in the loan.
Okay, so you don't have to get a separate loan for the renovations.
Exactly.
That's really nice.
That's all rolled into one.
Yeah, because that can feel like a big wall to climb over.
Oh, yeah, absolutely. Especially in today's market.
Yeah, you find this place, and it's got good bones, but it just needs... everything's dated. Yeah. And you're like, ugh, do I really want to deal with two different loans?
Right. Two different sets of paperwork.
It's just a lot.
Yeah, exactly.
And Rooster Homes really emphasizes that this is a huge help for people who don't have a ton of cash on hand to cover all those renovation costs.
You know, they're putting their money into the house rather than having it all up front.
Exactly.
So there's actually two types of 203K loans.
That's right.
There's the limited 203K, and there's the standard 203K. So what's the difference?
So the limited 203K is for like smaller projects.
Okay.
So think like cosmetic stuff.
Okay.
You're not really doing major structural work.
Okay.
But, you know, you want to update the kitchen. Put in some new floors, maybe paint, like, you know, spruce it up a bit.
Got it.
And the limit there is $35,000.
$35,000.
Yeah.
Okay. So if you have a house and it needs a new kitchen.
Yeah.
Or it needs new appliances.
Right.
That would be the limited 203K.
Okay. What about the standard 203K?
So that's when you're getting into like the bigger projects.
Yeah.
You know, you're maybe doing some structural work. You need to like repair the foundation.
Wow.
You're adding rooms on.
Wow.
Yeah. So it's like a bigger scope of work.
And HUD and Rooster Homes both say that if you're doing the standard, you need to get a HUD-approved 203K consultant.
That's right.
So what does a consultant do?
So they're basically like your project manager.
Okay.
You know, they make sure that everything is going according to plan.
Right.
They make sure that all the work meets HUD guidelines.
Okay.
They'll review the bids from your contractors.
Got it.
Make sure you're not getting ripped off.
Right.
And they'll also help with like the disbursement of funds.
Okay, so they're really there to make sure that the project stays on track.
Yeah, they're there to protect you and the lender.
That makes sense.
To make sure that, you know, the money's being used properly.
Right.
And that the work is being done correctly.
Right. Okay, so that's a consultant.
Yeah.
Now, HUD also mentioned something called the Title I Property Improvement Loan Program.
Right.
What's that?
So that's a separate program, and it's for folks who already own their home.
Okay.
And they just want to do some renovations.
Got it.
So they're not buying a new house, not refinancing.
It's just straight up.
Just home improvement.
Got it.
Okay.
So if you already own a home,
you
just want to renovate, that might be a better option.
Exactly.
But if you're buying a new house or refinancing,
then you want the 203K.
That's when you'd look at the 203K. Okay.
Exactly.
So who can actually get a 203K loan?
Yeah, so there's a few things you need to know.
Okay.
First of all, you need to have decent credit.
Okay.
Rooster Homes says that it's usually around like 580 to 640.
Okay.
But it could vary depending on the lender.
Right.
Also, the property has to be your primary residence.
Okay, so you can't buy like a rental property with this loan.
Exactly. You can't use it for investment properties.
Got it.
And the house has to need at least $5,000 worth of repairs.
$5,000.
Yeah. So it's not for like just, minor touch-ups.
Yep.
It's for like, actual renovations.
Okay.
And then all the work that you're doing has to be approved by the FHA.
FHA approved. Okay.
Right.
So there's probably some guidelines on what they'll approve and what they won't approve.
Exactly. We'll get into that a little bit later.
Yeah, we'll get into the specifics later.
Yeah.
So let's walk through the steps of actually getting a 203K loan.
Okay. Sounds good.
Rooster Homes lays it out really nicely.
Yeah, they do.
So the first thing you do is you find a property
Right.
that needs renovations and that meets FHA guidelines.
Yep.
Then you need to find an FHA-approved lender.
Yes. This is important.
Because not all lenders do these loans.
Exactly.
You got to find someone who knows what they're doing.
Right. Someone who specializes in 203K loans.
Yep, exactly.
Yeah.
Okay, so you've got the property, you've got the lender.
Yep.
Now, depending on how big the renovations are.
Right.
Remember we talked about limited versus standard?
Uh-huh.
You might need to hire a consultant.
That's right.
That HUD-approved consultant.
Yeah.
So then you got to get bids from contractors.
Yep.
And put together a plan of what work needs to be done.
Right.
And a budget.
Yeah, you need to have a detailed scope of work.
Got it.
And a budget that everybody agrees on.
And the lender has to approve that.
Yes, and the consultant if you have one.
Okay, so it's not enough to just have like a vague idea of what you want to do.
It needs to be specific.
You got to have it all written down.
Exactly.
Okay.
Yeah.
So then once that's all approved, you close on the loan.
Right.
But here's the interesting part.
Okay.
They don't just give you all the money at once.
Right.
Part of it goes to the seller.
Yep.
Or if you're refinancing it, pays off your old mortgage.
Right.
But the money for the renovations goes into a special account.
It's called an escrow account.
Okay.
Yeah, and the money is released as the work is completed.
Okay, so it's not like you just get a giant check and then hope that you use it for the renovations.
Exactly. There's oversight to make sure the money's being used appropriately.
And then the final step is a completion inspection.
That's right.
To make sure that all the work was done according to HUD guidelines.
Exactly.
Okay, so that's the whole process from start to finish.
Yep.
Now, what kind of properties can you actually finance with this loan?
So HUD has a whole list of eligible properties. So you can do a single-family home.
Okay.
We can do a 2 to 4 family unit.
Okay, so like a duplex or triplex.
Exactly. You can do a townhome.
Got it.
You can do a condo.
Okay.
But for a condo, it's usually just interior renovations.
Right, because you don't own the building.
Exactly.
Yeah.
You can also do a manufactured home.
Okay.
But it has to be titled as real estate.
Okay.
And you can't do any structural work on it.
Got it.
You can also finance a HUD home.
So that's a home that HUD has taken over.
Yeah, usually through foreclosure.
Okay.
And then you can also finance a mixed-use property.
Okay.
But at least 51% of it has to be residential.
51% residential.
Okay.
Yeah. So there's a lot of different types of properties.
Yeah, pretty much anything you can think of.
That you can use this loan for.
Yeah, as long as it meets the guidelines.
Yeah. Okay, so now let's talk about the actual renovations.
Okay.
What can you use this money for?
So basically anything that makes the property more livable, safer, and up to code.
Okay, so you can't use it to like build a bowling alley in your basement.
Yeah, no bowling alleys.
Okay.
No swimming pools.
No swimming pools.
You can actually use it to remove a pool, though.
Oh, wow.
Which is kind of interesting.
Yeah, I wouldn't have thought of that.
Yeah, so if you have a pool that you don't want, you can actually use the 203K money to get rid of it.
That's good to know.
Yeah.
Okay, so some other things you can do, you can fix the foundation.
Yep.
You can add rooms. You can finish a basement or an attic. You can fix the roof.
Yeah, all the important stuff.
Yeah.
You can update the electrical, the plumbing, HVAC.
What's HVAC?
That's heating, ventilation, and air conditioning.
Oh, okay, got it.
You can also do things like landscaping.
Okay.
Put in a fence.
The fence, okay.
Yeah, driveway.
Driveway, got it.
You know, make the outside look nice, too.
Yeah, okay.
And you can also buy new appliances.
Oh, so you can get a new refrigerator.
Yep, a new stove.
Dishwasher.
Yeah, all that stuff.
Wow, okay.
Yeah.
Now, what about making a house accessible?
Yeah, that's a big part of the program.
Okay.
You can do things like installing ramps, widening doorways, making bathrooms accessible.
Okay.
So it's a great way to make a house work for everyone.
Yeah, that's great.
Yeah.
And HUD also mentions that you can use the loan to make energy efficient improvements.
That's right.
So you can make your house more environmentally friendly.
Yep.
Okay, that's core.
Yeah, it's a good way to save money on your energy bills, too.
In the long run.
Okay.
Yeah.
Now, there's also some supplemental programs that you can use with a 203K loan.
That's right.
So HUD mentions Section 2038 of mortgage insurance, which is for people who have been affected by a natural disaster.
Yeah, so if your house was damaged in a hurricane or a fire, you can use this program to help rebuild.
Wow. Okay.
Yeah.
That's really helpful.
Yeah, it's a good resource to know about.
Yeah.
There's also the Energy Efficient Mortgage Program, which can help you finance energy-saving improvements.
Oh, okay.
And you might even be able to borrow more money.
Wow. Okay.
If you're doing energy-efficient upgrades.
Okay.
And then there's also financing for solar and wind technologies.
Okay, so you can add solar panels to your house.
Exactly.
With this loan.
Yep.
Okay, so there's a lot of different ways to make your house more efficient.
Yeah, there's a lot of options.
And more sustainable.
Exactly.
Okay. So Rooster Homes also talked about some of the benefits of using a 203K loan.
So one of the big ones is that you can get a lower down payment.
Yeah, sometimes as low as 3.5%.
Wow, okay.
Yeah, which is great for first-time home buyers.
Yeah.
Who might not have a lot of money saved up.
Right.
And then another big benefit is that you only have one loan. You don't have to deal with two separate loans, two separate sets of paperwork.
Yeah.
It's all rolled into one.
Yeah, it's just one monthly payment.
Exactly.
That's a lot easier to manage.
Yeah, definitely.
What else did Rooster Homes say?
They also said that you can build equity more quickly.
Okay.
Well, when you're doing renovations, you're increasing the value of your property.
Right.
So you're building equity faster than if you were just waiting for the market to go up.
Okay, that makes sense.
Yeah. And then another benefit is that you might face less competition.
Okay, why is that?
Well, because not everyone wants to buy a fixer-upper.
Right.
So you might be able to get a better deal.
Okay, so you might be able to get a house in a nicer neighborhood.
Yeah, possibly.
Or a bigger house.
Yeah, exactly.
For less money.
Yeah, because you're willing to put in the work.
Okay, that's a good point.
Yeah.
Now, Rooster Homes also mentioned some challenges.
Right.
So one of them is that it can take longer to close on a 203K loan.
Yeah, because there's more paperwork, more inspections, so it's not a quick process.
So if you're in a hurry to move,
yeah,
this might not be the best option.
Exactly.
Oh.
And then another challenge is that there are a lot of guidelines.
Okay.
You have to follow HUD's rules.
Yeah.
So you don't have as much flexibility as you would with a regular loan.
Yeah.
And then the last challenge is that not all lenders offer 203K loans, so you might have to shop around to find one that does.
Okay, so you really need to do your research.
Yeah, absolutely.
Okay, so if someone is interested in a 203K loan, where can they go to learn more?
So HUD has a lot of great information on their website.
Okay.
HUD.gov.
Got it.
They have fact sheets. They have guidelines.
Okay.
They even have a tool where you can find HUD-approved
consultants. Okay.
Yeah.
So you can find someone in your area.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And then Rooster Homes also said that people can reach out to them for guidance.
Got it.
And they can also connect you with lenders who offer 203K loans.
So there are resources out there.
Yeah, absolutely.
You don't have to do this alone.
Nope.
Okay, so to wrap up our deep dive on FHA 203K loans,
yeah,
it's a really great option.
Yeah, it is.
If you want to buy a fixer-upper
and
you want to roll the renovation costs into your mortgage,
exactly.
It's a government-backed loan.
Yep.
So it can give you peace of mind.
Right.
And it can really help you create the home of your dreams.
That's the goal.
Yeah.
Right.
So it really opens up a lot of possibilities.
Yeah, you're not limited to just move-and-ready homes.
Right.
You can really get creative.
Yeah.
And find a property that has the potential to be something truly special.
Right. But it is a more complicated process.
Yeah.
Than a regular mortgage.
It definitely is.
So you need to do your research.
You
need to find a good lender.
Right.
And you need to be prepared for a longer closing time.
Exactly.
But if you're willing to put in the work,
yeah,
it can be a really rewarding experience.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
You get to customize your home to be exactly what you want.
Yeah, and you get to see it transform.
Yeah, that's a really cool feeling.
Yeah, so as you're looking at properties, think about what kind of potential they have.
Yeah.
Even if they need some work.
Right.
Maybe that house that everyone else is passing over is actually the perfect house for you.
Exactly.
What's one renovation you've always wanted to do?
Ooh, good question.
Maybe a 203K loan could help you make that happen.
It's possible.
Yeah, it's worth looking into.
Definitely.
Okay, so that's it for today's deep dive on FHA 203K loans.
Thanks for listening.
Thanks for joining us.
Yeah, that was fun.
Yeah, I hope this was helpful.
I hope so too.
All right, we'll see you next time.
See ya.